Yo, what's up, everybody? My name is Del. I'm here with BJ Thompson, founder and executive director of Build a Better Us.
Right.
Thanks for joining us, bro.
Thanks for having me.
We're here with Andy Mineo. This is a work in progress podcast. This whole podcast is centered around a whole bunch of songs that Andy hasn't released for a whole bunch of reasons that are finally seeing the light of day. We talk a little bit about the context and then some of the larger themes. And today we're talking about Till Death Do Us Part.
Yes. Yep. This record, it's out right now, so you can listen to it with this podcast. It actually started as an idea right around the time I was getting married. So 2013, I started working on this song, and 2014 is when I got married. So 2013, I had the idea. 2014 came around. I actually had an entire EP rollout idea. Like, these were going to be little EPs that were going to come out, and they were all going to be themed, and I don't even want to say it because one day I might do it. It's still really a dope idea. But yeah, I was in love. I still am in love, but I just fallen in love. I knew that I was going to marry this girl, Christina, who, we're about to hit 5 years this year, which is crazy. And, you're just flooded with that emotion at that time. And I wanted to figure out a way to do it. Now, at some point, I might release some of this video. If people have come to my tours in the past, they've seen me put up actual clips from my wedding. But one of my favorite songs is To Be Real.
That's a jam.
That's a jam. Classic.
Right? And so as soon as me and my wife got married, we turned around. We now pronounce you, Mr. and Mrs. Delgado Mineo. And we just started dancing coming down the aisle. And I just remember how much fun with that moving bass line and those upbeat records. And I was like, man, I really want to make something like that. And so I went back in my bag into the the vintage live bass, live guitar, piano situation, live drum situation. And we rented a studio in Nashville called, I think it was Blackbird Studios, it might be in Nashville. But it's a really nice studio, and we actually recorded to 2-inch tape, which is, right now everyone records to digital. But 2-inch tape is like reel to reel, like the way that they did Michael Jackson stuff and like all the works all the way up mostly through the 90s and before then. And so it has this like warm vintage analog sound to it. And I brought in some incredible bass players and drum players and everybody, and we tracked the whole thing live there. And it just sounds rich. It sounds like expensive. It sounds beautiful and vintage. And, the record, I'm a hip hop artist, so this was like far left for me. And so a lot of the fears arose in me around like, how do I release this? And on what project? Like, you're going to just get like a boom bap, like hip hop album with trap stuff. And then all of a sudden you're going to get like a Daft Punk record out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, I don't know how this is going to fit. So it never came out. And every year I've been like, man, maybe I'll just drop it on, Valentine's Day or something. And we never do because we get caught up working on other projects. So this has been sitting around for a while. And every time I play it for somebody, like the whole room just starts dancing. So I was like, you know what? We need to find a way to get it out. And I really hope that this will become like an anthem for people's weddings. That's awesome. That people be able to dance to it and have a good time.
When was it that you first made this song?
2014.
So like 5 years ago?
Yeah.
This song is basically as old as
classic.
Your marriage.
It's already classic.
Exactly.
It's classic already.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's wild, dude.
But you know what? I heard a story that, 'cause I'm happy, clap along. Like, that Pharrell was holding on to that record for like 7 years or something.
Really?
Yeah. He held on to it for a really long time because he was like, the market's not ready for it. And then it came out. Same thing with Stir Fry. In the kitchen.
Oh yeah, Stir Fry was a beat that this didn't have for a minute.
Like 10 years ago. And so, sometimes that's what it is, man. It's just like timing is really
they had
key.
that beat 10 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Then this dude discovered it, yeah.
We're dropping it in this context, which is, man, it's never came out, but it should come out because it's still good and it doesn't have to be attached to any bigger project, which is why I felt the freedom to release these records and let people in on more of my creativity.
Yeah, man. I think it's interesting to talk on that for a minute, like just the difficulties of putting some, which we've talked about in another episode, which is just the difficulty of having the courage to put something out there that might be a departure from the norm for you.
Right. Yeah.
And this song is very like more musical. It's like got a groove to it.
Sure.
So, you know, like I said in the other episode, man, it's just kind of like commending your courage for putting it out. And I know that this context makes it easier for you
sure,
because you're like, yo, man, I don't know how I feel about this song. Like I'm kind of scared. Yeah. And that's the point of this whole project. So you guys tell me what you think. So I just think it's super dope, man. And I think what would be really interesting is to kind of touch on some of the themes that you talk about in this record, which is really centered around a celebration of marriage, yeah?
Yeah.
And
yeah, absolutely.
Everything that represents and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I actually have another record called Loaded Gun, which is very similar to this topic, which is the chorus says, I'm giving you this loaded gun, trusting that you'll never set it off. I'm giving you this loaded gun. And it's just basically saying, like, when you love somebody, when you trust somebody, it's essentially what you're doing. Like, when you give them access to your heart, you give them a loaded gun, you give them all the ammunition to harm you, and you trust that they won't. And, you know, I think that's one of the biggest pieces. That's one of the biggest pieces to, what?
Andy with the heat.
I'm loving this.
Andy with the
reactions are crazy.
He's like, at the heat. He's like, a loaded gun. Wow.
And yeah, man, I think that's why commitment is so hard for people. Because to commit to somebody would really mean that you have to give them access. Yeah. All access. And to give someone all access is the possibility to really be hurt by them. And I don't think you get deep, intimate, like vulnerable love without giving someone access to hurt you. Sure. Because if the same pathway to give someone access to hurt you is the same pathway to give someone access to love you. And it's the same funnel. Yeah. And so you can't get one without the other. But what a lot of people try to do is try to get love without the access to hurt. And what that basically is you give like basically a version of yourself or a part of yourself to a degree, but where you can still control it and keep people at a distance. And I feel like that's what most of us do in relationships and why guys and girls, a lot of people are just afraid to commit. Especially when you're doing, for me, I was like in my mid-20s, like I'm blowing up as a rapper, I'm selling records, I'm getting to travel. And now it's like, oh, commit to one person. And I'm like, but what about all the other people out there, the people I never met? What about, you know, and so you always wonder if there's somebody better out there, someone who looks better, someone who, you know, is smarter, someone, whatever. You do all these things in your mind. And, you know, it makes it really difficult to make a choice. So we can talk about that for days, but that was some of the record. And to finally say, no, I'm going to commit to you until death does us part. Like, until death is what I'm signing up for. Yeah. That's a scary thing. I got a lot of stories.
Oh, man, there's two crazy things there. Like, one, I remember you shared a long time ago the how you didn't believe in soulmates. And I was like, yo, break that down for me. What do you mean? And, you know, because I don't think I ever did either. I just thought it was cheesy. It sounded good. I just thought it was cheesy, but I didn't really have like real reasons. Did you believe in the Zodiac? Behind it. No, I don't.
Okay, got it.
I don't even know what that.
That's why you didn't believe in a soulmate.
Yeah, I guess so. But I remember you were saying if you believe in a soulmate and you find this person and you believe you found this person, the amount of weight that you would put on them is going to crush them and the relationship because it's an idol. And that's what you do with things that you put on a pedestal. And then when you do it with a human being, it's just too much. For someone, you know, I said this the one time, like I actually preached, which was the day I proposed. Crazy.
I remember that.
In 2012.
You man hit a half court buzzer beater.
Nah,
twice.
but You remember that Young Gun song, No Better Love? You remember. He's like, I was listening to it this morning. And he says, girl, I want to be your father, your brother, your mother, your everything. And I was like, oh my God, I wouldn't want to be that for anybody. Think about that. If I was with a woman and she's like, yo, you're my soulmate, I'm like, oh, this chick might kill me. Like if things don't work out, like she might like stalk me and because it's like, no, you're my soulmate. We were born to be together. Yep. Like that's
and
crazy.
If this doesn't work, I missed it.
Right.
It's over.
But then there's another thing. If you believe in soulmates and you're with somebody and things start to like the excitement declines, what it always does, or you start to see some of their not so great parts, what's gonna be the first thing you do? Oh, you must not be my soulmate. So if it's not you, where's she at? And now you're gonna be the guy that's like 60, still on some like, still haven't found the one for me. And when he demystified that, I thought it was really helpful because look, man, let's just keep it a buck. If you meet somebody and you're attracted and you are friends, meaning you genuinely like each other and like each other's company, and she has a character and a worldview that is good, then just commit. Because they will be imperfect. You know what I mean? And I remember reading in psychology today, like it's essential. One of the things that they said is essential is like, and I'm not saying that this is not possible if you don't do it this way, but psychology today, which isn't, they're not coming from a Christian worldview, we're saying that opposites do attract. But the core things like your religion, your values have to be the same.
Yeah.
Now, what's different is if you're adrenaline junkie, you're an adrenaline junkie and your wife's like a bookworm. Like that's good.
Yeah.
That you're a completely different person, that you have different personalities because that's gonna lead to you guys having different experiences and you know, you're gonna open your mind to different things. But I thought that was really important because honestly, it wasn't until I really was mature in my faith and until I really thought out that thing that I was ready to commit to somebody because I knew what committing was. So when I met my wife that I'm with now that I love, and when I first met her, I was like, wow, like fireworks, bro. I was like, love at first sight type numbers. Like, I'm not even kidding. But then after a couple months, I was like, oh, you got baggage. Like, you got issues. Like, there's things about you I don't really like.
To come out,
like,
everyone's got a bag. What's in your bag,
man,
dog?
like, I'm not feeling you sometimes. And I know, same thing for me. Yeah. But both of us had that understanding, and we were able to say, like, all right, I see what's going on here. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. But you know what? We're friends. I met your family. I've seen you around different people. We share the same values and beliefs. Like, I'm willing to commit to you. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And I think that's just super important. And something that I think Hollywood and culture and films and music say, I think the complete opposite. Yeah. And that's, you know, that can be hurtful.
And I've said this before, and BJ, I love your thoughts on it, but like, basically, when I talk about marriage, like I remember even when I told people like, yo, I'm getting married. Yo, I got met by like a positive reaction like once. One person was like, yo, you're gonna love it. It's gonna be incredible. I'm so happy for you. Everyone else was like, man, get ready. And it was so discouraging to me. And I was like, word? Now, luckily for me, I'm still waiting for that disaster that they're talking about because it's been incredible for me. We've had our ups and downs, obviously, because it's a relationship, but it has not been the disastrous thing that everybody said it was going to be.
It's been the opposite.
It's been the opposite. It's been such a pleasure. You know what I'm saying? But when I would ask people, like, what do you really look for in a wife? I was saying those things. I was like, I definitely want to be on the same page about the things that are most important to me. But another thing, which I think is like a simpler way of saying it, is what crap are you willing to deal with?
Yeah.
Because everybody comes with it.
Yeah.
But for me, what I realized was like there was a girl I was dating prior to being with my wife, and there was some things in the relationship that I was just like, nah, I'm not willing to like deal with that every day. But I noticed with Christina, there was definitely stuff, but I was like, this baggage doesn't break me in a way that I was like, I'm turned off by the whole thing. I saw it and I was like, I'm willing. And I think that was a good indicator for me that like this person is good for me. Now you might get into a relationship and find out there's way more things and than you expected. But I thought that was a good marker. It was like, I see your flaws and I still am drawn to you and I still want to keep going. So, that was one of the things that I had looked for. And BJ, I know that you work with couples all the time, especially through Build a Better Us. I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more about what you do with Build a Better Us, and then how these conversations, about compatibility and
the soulmate,
and the soulmate, like how these are things you probably are speaking with people about a lot.
Yeah. So we started Build a Better Us about 10 years ago. We've been married for 17 years this year.
You and your wife are doing Build.
Well, yeah, we initially started. We have an entire team and organization. And we started because we realized we were in the faith and we were around people who had health, but it was all cliches. And those cliches for us was leading to a lot of confusion and then led to a crisis, right? And so part of the reason why we were forced to start was it was either start something that was intentional and was practical and purposeful and meaningful and transformative, or not be married at all. And so in a lot of ways, people ask me like, man, how did you guys have this organization that helps create growth with individuals and couples? And I go, man, it was either learn how to swim or drown in this thing called relationships and marriages. And so, so one of the things you're asking me about, how do you speak to compatibility? I don't think a lot of us even give a lot of time to it. You're referring to whatever worldview you got. So maybe you thought compatibility was your zodiac sign. If you a Libra, or you a Scorpio, or you a Pisces, and like, how do those things match? Or maybe compatibility is your preferences. And so I think a lot of us like pick the preferences. Do I like this certain thing that you do with your hair? Or do I like this thing that you do with your makeup? Or I like
how you look physically,
like anything,
how bad
like
you are.
Literally any preference. So I don't think any of us have a good, mature perspective on compatibility, because our compatibility honestly comes through R&B music. So whatever like your top pop songs, whatever your top romantic thing that makes you like your thing, like you like determine that's what I learned my compatibility. And then I think the culture nowadays equates its romantic sexual intimacy with compatibility. So you got shows like Insecure, and people like, yo, I just want to be in this situation like this, but I don't want all these other variables that come with that situation. So I think in a lot of ways we imagine a compatibility, and then I love what you're saying, Dale, then you impose that imagination onto another human being, and then we wonder why we ghost. We wonder why we can't keep any relationships anymore, because the compatibility is built around pop culture, movies, imagination, and everything you wish you would not have done with your ex. And so, so I think in a lot of ways that's the weight of what we're bringing in. And so you don't even know like, what should this actually look like? Because your imagination and presuppositions are really ruling more stuff. So
let me throw something in here. I'm just gonna drop a little bomb off.
Bombs, go.
Let's talk about sexual compatibility.
Okay.
Now, here's an interesting conversation, right?
Yeah.
So, I am a Christian today, right?
Yeah.
What that means, for me is that I try to read the Bible and follow what Jesus is talking about, because I think that's the best option. For sure. That's basically where I'm at with things. And there's a strong push towards, especially in Christian culture, towards sexual purity, which means keeping the sacredness of sex like separate until marriage, right? Now that kind of sounds like an outdated, crazy concept for today.
Yeah.
Especially since people got Tinder, you getting laid on the first night, like, you know, and especially music, everything about our culture, it makes sexual intimacy a very like flippant thing and not seen as a sacred thing that I think the Bible talks about it being. But one of the things I hear a lot from people is, yo, how can I sign up to be with somebody for the rest of my life if the sex is whack?
And I never slept with him before.
Right.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is something I've heard a lot of people say. And I'm like, yo, that's a good question.
Test
You ain't
drive
gonna
it
know.
before you
You want
buy
to test
it.
I
drive
gotta test
before
the
you
car
buy the
before I
whip.
drive it off the line.
Right.
That's crazy.
And so, you know, there's a lot around that conversation, around that topic, but I think it's stuff that people are really wrestling with. If they're like, yo, I want to follow, like, I'm interested in spirituality, I'm interested in following Jesus, but some of these rules I don't know about. Well, I don't know. How do you respond to that?
That's a great question. You know, what's interesting, when you got married, so I'm just assuming you had sexual intercourse or contact before you were married, right?
My story is I was having sex prior to me being married.
Yep.
But not with my wife. So me and my wife actually made it.
Good.
But that was a big part because of
Wait, just
Hold
just
up.
clarify.
No, but I wanna make
No,
this.
clarify, because it sounds like I was,
to the
I was
finish line.
having sex.
Yeah, but
not with her. I was
that's the soundbite you gotta use.
Soundbite. But listen,
I
I'm
was
saying
sexually active since I was about 15 years
for
old.
sure. So here's what I want to make. Here's
So
a question.
then-
Go ahead.
So then, I became a Christian, and I still had sex
For sure.
with girls, but in a very what do you call it? Like,
Conscious way.
In a conscious way.
Yeah,
that
conscious
like when
way
it
down.
happened, I felt like this
Yeah, conscious
remorseful
way.
guilt.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when I got with Christina,
Yeah.
I knew that I didn't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
And so I remember she was in college at the time, and she was like, I knew I wanted to marry her, and I was like, yo, BJ. I remember calling BJ.
Yeah.
BJ's been a friend and a mentor to me for years, and that's you know why I'm glad you're here, man. But
Wow.
I said to BJ, I said, yeah. So she's graduating college next year. So maybe we'll do the wedding after she graduates.
Wow,
And BJ
I
said,
remember that.
do you think you can maintain her sexual purity and yours for a year and a half?
Wow.
And I just remember being like, nope. The boy's hot.
I didn't push him into marriage, bro. He did it.
And so I said, dang, if that's the case, if this is something that's important to me to try to like,
Were you already engaged?
no.
But
Listen,
you knew.
I was gonna propose. And so that's why though, before I was even married, I was putting money away in a marriage account.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even dating anybody, but I'd take a little bit of money and put it aside because I knew when it was time to get married, I didn't want to be in the situation like a lot of my friends where they're like, I've been engaged for 6 years. I'm just trying to save up money to do the wedding. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, how are you supposed to do that for that long? So I had saved up 20 grand. And so when I knew it was time to marry her, I went, took the money, bought a ring, proposed, and then 8 months later? 6 months later, we got married. So, I'm sorry, 4 months later, we got married.
Wow.
So I dated her for 6 months, and then 4 months later, we got married. So the whole thing was 10 months because I was like, yo, we got to get a move on this, because if not, it's going to get bad. I'm going bad out here.
Bad.
So, I intentionally put a little speed behind it.
For sure.
But I had also planned and prepared for it too. So that's why I think we were able to make. I think if it was going to be a year and a half after that, I was like, I don't know, bro.
Yeah.
Some people can. I couldn't.
Yeah. So what I was asking was, can you tell the difference between when you were having sex outside of marriage and sex inside, right? And I want to say something to us. We talk about people being out their mind, right? You ever notice that after sex, when you're before marriage, you have to reconcile the fact that you're not sure if you're fully committed to this individual, and you feel the deepened connection that is unique to any other human being. And I think that this is one of the challenges with sex, is we just treat it so flippantly, like, yo, I want to test the car out, I want to see what's going on. But the attachment that happens through sex from one or both parties, when they're healthy, creates such a confusion because you don't know what really to do with how you feel. Like you're like, yo, I don't really feel like this about you anymore, but we got this deep bond and the sex is really good, right? And so what I would say is anytime you see confusion, you know that there's something wrong, right? We look at confusion in culture and we say like, yo, we can just put Band-Aids around whatever the confusion is with money, with dates, with situationships, and we just try to put Band-Aids around it. When you see a lack of peace in your mind where you have the ability to say, despite whether or not the sexual encounter with you was good in this moment, like I'm married, I've been married for 17 years. Every time we've had sex, and we've had sex hundreds and probably not thousands of times, has not been amazing. But what the difference between me now and me before marriage is I choose to love her afterwards, and then we come back to romantic intimacy because we're committed to each other. And I think that is the greatest challenge of our day, is that though we say we really want this connection, our ability to be known and to be vulnerable is the thing that's creating so much heartbreak. That's why people don't want to be together now. That's why it's like, I don't know, I've been hurt so many times.
Sure.
Yeah, because you have connections to people in the most vulnerable ways that you could imagine. Yeah. And now you're starting to like create this objectivity even around sex. You go, well, it's nothing but sex. And I say, I was watching this interview with a guy, he goes, if after a month, a guy asks you, let me get the passcode for your phone. And he was like, would you give it? He's like, nah, I wouldn't give it. He says, but within a month, how many of you would give your body to that person? And I go, oh, yo, he rocked me with it. And I was like, yo, we would not give the I think that the passcode on my phone is more valuable than the most vulnerable pieces of me bore to another human being. And so what I think for us is, because we are so anemic to the ideas of relationships and connection, we'll take the most vulnerable connection that we can get with people and we'll settle for that, void of the commitment that actually protects us. And so when we say, I need to test the car out first, it comes from a place of brokenness. Because here's what happens in sex, in marriage over time. I've been married 17 years. It's for connection and not performance. Sex before is for like this quick pleasure. You get your rocks off. You tell everybody, yo, this was dope. This was good. Sex outside of marriage, sex within marriage, is to remind you of the intimacy and the vulnerability through physical life that you're gonna share, through sexual life that you're gonna share in your physical and emotional life through everything else that you're doing. And I think that because we don't know that other side, even people of faith find themselves in a trap of like, yo, I woke up this morning, I don't feel you anymore. Because we're choosing to not decide to love. And that's what makes sex good over time.
Yo,
I
dropping wild heat.
Yo,
Yeah.
And I
real.
think the piece about performance over the longevity, like we would settle for performance or consumerism, as they're saying, than this longevity where the flash in the pan, though it's bigger and brighter, seems a lot more interesting than the long term. I'm also working on a song. It's called what was it? Firework. And it's like we would rather settle for a firework than a candle, right? And the firework explodes and it's big and it's bright and it's flashy and boom, but the slow burn and the longevity of a candle is like not as attractive.
This is good,
right? That's why I said like fireworks. I'd rather have. I'm gonna butcher the song, but that's essentially the concept, is that there's something way more fulfilling and satisfying about the longevity of someone saying, yo, whether or not the sex was whack, I'm here for you. Yeah. That is so much more deeply fulfilling than a wild sexual encounter, but it's hard to explain that to somebody.
Because it's all we know. So all we know is wild connections based off of this disconnect that says, as long as this is good, then I'm good. And I'm saying it's settling for those things. You talked about how relationships, they don't create issues, they reveal them. And when you have sex over a period of time of being married.
Say it again, though.
relationships don't create issues, they just reveal them. So that's why people, when they get married, they think it's gonna all go away. It all comes back. Everything that you have comes back, and you have to confront them in new ways. And what happens with sex over time, and you know what? I need to speak to this. Sex over time, because relationship itself is like revealing issues. And they don't just reveal issues. You said the 5% earlier on one of the podcasts. The 5% is revealed over time. Imagine your life being revealed and your flaws being revealed 5% at a time over, years at a time with one person. As those issues are coming out and you come back to sex, despite the fact that those issues and flaws are being revealed, intimacy is greater because the issues are revealed as greater. And so now when you connect, you're connecting in a more meaningful way than I like your butt. I like your breast. I like the fact that you can, do this, give me head in a certain way. Like, you're connecting in a much more meaningful way because the love that you have to give to a person, you're choosing to give a love to a person with a growing knowledge of their flaws and a growing knowledge of your flaws, so that when you come together in intimacy, sex is so much more mutually sweeter because you chose to be intimate despite the fact that you fall short. This is the love that people are longing for that they can't speak to. It's a love of choice, not a love of impulse. What y'all think?
This man said, what
Yo,
y'all think?
I don't know, y'all can't see this right now, but the whole studio is doing ninja backflips back here. Cause dog, it makes so much sense. What you wanna do?
Let's call it for what it is though, right?
Yeah.
I think marriage right now is starting to be, it's starting to be looked at in a different light because
Picking up steam.
yeah, especially in hip hop.
It is.
Like
It's kind of
especially in hip hop, people are starting to like admire the institution of marriage because they have like influential people that are like Jay-Z and Beyonce, and you have Gucci Mane that like is really, promoting, which I think is really good.
Sure.
What's still wild corny for people though, I think, is waiting. It's abstinence. It's waiting till marriage. I just think that's still like the stocks are wild low when it comes to that. And you know what I'm saying? And I think obviously it's been the way I think it's been represented has a lot to do with it. But when you just think about why that is so, and what you exchange, what you lose and what you gain, right? So I always remember that. I don't remember the actual verse, but it says like they have gotten their reward. And listen, you're talking to a guy. I was the worst, bro. Like before I was really active in my faith. Like that was my thing. Like I was dating a lot, seeing a lot of girls. I would ghost all the time, Like I'd just be like, for 2 months, we're like mad tight and everything, and then I'm just like, peace. I had like really immature. I was really immature, really selfish. Really didn't understand human relationships on that level. And like I said, it took things for me to, see it for what it was. But I think about this. I was just telling my little brother this. I'm like, yo, imagine you abstain from sex. You just never do it, right?
Imagine that.
Imagine it.
Imagine
Like
that.
big imagination.
And you meet a girl.
Yeah.
And you guys are like really genuine friends. Like think about the platonic chemistry between you and your best homeboy.
Good.
You have that with a girl that you're attracted to. She goes to your church. You guys believe in the same God. Like and you see the way she behaves around friends. And then you see the way she behaves around family. And you're like, oh, yeah, character's there. I'm loving it. Let's say, so you start courting, then you start dating, and then you get engaged, and then you get married. Bruh, if y'all have never had sex, that wedding night, just think about, like use your imagination and think about how impactful that experience is going to be.
Yeah.
To share that.
That's it. Like, under God, in front of all the people you love, you said, yo, I'm committing to you no matter what. No matter what, I'm right here. And, yo, you know, I used to read dating books, like, before I was, like, married or anything.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, like, from a Christian perspective. And, you know, it was like, yo, should you kiss? Should you hold hands? Should you this and that? It's like, look, man, obviously apart from, like, having sex, which we know you shouldn't do, it's just a question of the more things you decide not to do is, like, the more special that they're going to be when you do them inside marriage. Yeah. So I just think about that. To me, it's clear. Yeah. Like, how much more of a reward, how much more of a unforgettable experience that night will be than regretfully, with a tinge of guilt each time having sex all the way up into marriage. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
and I want you to take that and expand on it. Yeah. But I was gonna say this too, man. I remember reading this leadership book, and they were talking about the 3 C's. Like, if you're looking for someone to partner with, you know, look for character, chemistry, and competency. And if there's anything that you're gonna compromise on, make sure that it's competency. Yeah. Because character and chemistry are just 2 important things like that. They usually don't grow. They're usually just there. But competency is something like you can learn, you can change, you can adapt, you can grow. And I almost look at it that way in a lot of ways with sex, is like the sex in my marriage has only gotten better with time. You know what I'm saying? Because there's been a deeper understanding of who that person is, what they like, what they're into. How at different times, like, you're dealing with a different person in a different headspace. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes I have to talk this way or that way or whatever. Not to be like graphic, but you know what I'm saying? You understand the intimacy of who somebody is in a different way. And hey, babe, I would like this. Let's try this. You get to experiment and try things, and it's beautiful. And it evolves over time. But
if y'all are genuine friends and attracted, and let's say that first wedding night might be a little, it's all right. You have a whole life to practice, bro.
Let me bring something to help culture, because I think I want to be very helpful for culture. People who are having sex apart from lifelong commitment are not having the best sex. And I think it's just like a misconception. It's like, it's risky. It's all it is you're giving your full self vulnerably through intimacy and not reciprocated through commitment. And what I would say is that's where intimacy has to grow. Intimacy grows around the commitment that can contain it, so that as it grows, it's like, oh, there's room for this thing. So here's a perfect example, bro. People in Miami love water on the beach. The beach is beautiful. You go out, these beautiful blue waves, and there's white sand, right? Well, that water is beautiful until the hurricane. Water that's in your living room is no longer beautiful. It's now a mess. What's the difference? It's boundaries. A person with no boundaries can take something beautiful, and now that beautiful thing with no boundaries becomes a disaster, right? The same with sex without commitment. The same thing is true in this culture. It's not that we want sex without marriage. It's just that we settle for sex because we're not sure if it'll lead to marriage. And so when you think about the culture as it exists now, there's not enough people talking vulnerably that are in committed relationships saying, no, like, this is better. It's worth the wait. And to your point about like purity culture, you practice that self-control of you're my friend and we have boundaries in friendship and relationship apart from marriage, because that's what you're going to need in marriage for life. It's not about purity. It's more about a pattern. I'm setting that pattern because when I go off to work after leaving my wife, The pattern is I'm already practicing. I meet a person of the opposite sex. I already know those boundaries, and she's seen me practice it because I practice it with her. That's what monogamy is. And so when we talk about the ideas of like, why should you have friendship and value boundaries before marriage and relationship? Well, that's what I'm gonna need you to do anyway. You're going to have to walk out the door every day and practice that same level of self-control. The last thing I want to say is this. The highest point of every relationship in marriage is friendship. Because you wake up one morning, and I've been married almost 20 years. You wake up one morning and you realize if we don't grow in friends, the vulnerability that I want to give to you isn't shared, it's just an obligation. And so what I would say is just learning how to be friends with people is a big deal. If you don't value friendship and you ghost on your friends, you'll ghost on your spouse, right? If you don't, it's a canary in a coal mine.
It's a character thing, to your point, yeah.
It's like if you ghost on people, you'll ghost on your spouse. Friendship is the highest point of relationship. And when you begin to value great friendship, now marriage makes sense. Now family makes sense. Now, romantic relationship. Now faith. All those things make sense because you get the greatest power.
And I think you absolutely. Another thing people don't consider is that when you do have sex with someone, when you're just dating and you just met them, especially if the sexual chemistry is really good, it really does cloud a lot
judgment
of
all the time.
The things, the character things that this person,
Absolutely.
like character deficiencies. You told me something once that a long time ago you were dating someone, y'all were having sex.
So re-say that again. Say the last part again. You killing it with that. Say that point. It makes you cloud your judgment and do what? It clouds your judgment.
You can't see the character deficiencies and the things that, and also it might make you blind to the fact that you might not really like this person.
Ooh,
and that's where I was gonna go with you.
That's happened.
Because you told me that happened to you, that he was with this girl, she was good, she was attractive, they were having sex, the sex was dope, but obviously, it can't stay at that level. Eventually it dips, you get tired, whatever. And then, you got to spice it up. But he became a Christian. He told her, yo, chill, let's take sex out of the equation. When you took sex out, he was able to see her personality and was like, yo, I don't really rock with you like that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's like,
wow.
So I think people need to consider that, like, sex, especially good sex, is gonna really make it hard for you to see people as they are.
That's good.
And then when the sex, because it 1000% will, is no longer as exciting or as dope as it was in the beginning, now you're gonna be left with someone that you're like, I don't really rock with you.
Yo, and here's the bugged out part. Building a relationship on sex is literally like building your house on a sandcastle. On sand. Because let's say you're a savage and you're going out. Let's say you're a savage and you're going for an hour.
Wow. Right? Wow. That's a long time.
Sex is such a small part of life in the grand scheme of things that to build the other 23 hours of your day on that 1 hour is literally ludicrous. To build a relationship on what the other 23 hours of your day would look like, you know what I'm saying? The time that you have to spend in the morning with this person, participating in family outings, going shopping, spending time together, enjoying meals. I think that's a much wiser place to start building a relationship on than it is for something that could be so fickle. And listen, at the end of the day, all of us, like we've been talking about aging, like age happens to all of us. And that 21-year-old body, like beauty is fleeting and it fades. But character is something that...
Beauty and booty.
Beauty and booty.
It's fleeting and it fades.
Yeah.
So, I think that's important. So, we might have to do 2 parts because we didn't even talk about masturbation yet.
Yeah.
That might have to be another one. No,
I'm
but
gonna
I
need
think,
to know what you think about yanking it. No.
What
We
you
need to get
know
into some
about pulling
thoughts.
rope?
We need to get into pulling rope and pulling pork.
Do you really? Are you seriously joking?
No, but wait.
Are you joking or are you
still think
serious,
there's
bro?
something
We
else.
run out of time?
I still think there's something else here. I still think there's something else here, because the beauty of like the beauty.
I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, the beauty of the Christian worldview on sex is that like, yo, it's a great thing.
It's a God's good idea.
Do it, like, be really good at it. Even in How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, he has advice for marrieds, and one of them is like, read a really good book on sex.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yo, it's like a great thing and it's meant to be enjoyed.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I like what you said. You said basically, hot take, married sex is the
better.
best.
It's better.
No, it's the best
Less
sex.
worry, less anxiety, more peace, more focus on the things that you have to get done. Centered, like it's like better. It's like it brings your mind.
It's vulnerable.
It brings your mind, body, and soul into peace. As long as you both are committing and growing.
If one time,
Say you ain't batting 100.
Yeah, if
Now
one
your
time
girl-
And nobody's batting 100.
Now
Hold on, let me
somebody's
say
gonna
this.
say- now
Nobody's
somebody's
batting
gonna
100.
say,
first of all,
all your friends
listen,
said your D was
batting
black.
1,000,
nobody.
gentlemen.
Yeah, nobody's
batting
batting
1,000 is the term.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
batting 100 is,
I don't even know.
That's more like it.
no one's
So you
batting
batting
1,000.
Yeah, nobody's batting 1,000.
Yeah. Let's
Nobody's
say if
batting
you have
1,000.
an off night.
Oh, it happens though.
Your
Say you
jumper
had to
ain't
phone it
working. The jumper ain't hitting. You phoned it in. You're missing layups.
You had one too many whiskeys.
Guess what? Yeah. This is a team you ain't getting cut from.
Is that right?
Hey, I need that security.
You know what I'm saying?
I need that extended contract.
That's exactly right.
Now you could come back and drop. Now you could come back and drop 50 on them the next night.
That's all I'm saying.
You feel me?
Yeah.
But if you don't pull up from half court like
so
Steph
crazy.
on night one,
Yeah.
she telling all your friends
Guess
you're
what?
whack.
Guess what?
It don't matter, bro.
We
She got you
clowning
for
now.
the next 60 years. It don't matter, bro.
Yeah, man. I just think that trust, that vulnerability,
Yeah.
really impacts. And you know what? To touch again on purity culture, like you said.
Yeah.
Yo,
It
we need to talk
really
about
is.
that.
It really is the difference between $100 now and $10 million later. Like, that only captures some of what the difference is.
Yeah.
And it goes back to saying about the reward. It's really a risking a short-term thing for a long-term capital huge win.
Yes.
That's really what we're talking about at the end of the day. And man, listen.
But I will tell you this.
I'm a guy that couldn't do it. I was active, and I wish that wouldn't have been the case. So I just want to say to people that struggle, like I want to encourage them.
Yeah, but you're part of the reason why women hate men in some ways too, right? What? So like we act like that's a victimless crime. Like we act like, yo, I went through all of these things and then I got married and my mind got clear. I'm saying it's not a victimless crime. It adds to the distrust, the brokenness.
Yo, when I first became Christian, dog, I wrote mad letters apologizing.
For sure.
I made wild phone calls because I finally saw it for what it was.
But I'm saying that's what adds to the culture of distrust. Is sex before marriage is not a victimless crime. It's literally people who
leaving
are
bodies.
Bodies everywhere.
Body counts.
And broken hearts everywhere.
Broken hearts. Because everybody wants to be like, oh, nah, we're just sleeping together. But nah, man.
And then they hate you. Hold up. And then they hate you when they watch you walk down that aisle and commit to one woman for the first time, and you gave them all the things that you want to give her in a moment.
The key here is commitment. The beauty of commitment, the safety of commitment.
That's tight. Till death do us part.
That's the real key here, man.
Yeah.
BJ, thanks for joining us, bro. We definitely we didn't even get to jump into half the things. We gotta bring you back.
I know, bro.
Yo.